Abyss of Dagath is here. And with it came the Warframe Dagath, because, you know, it's the update, and she's the update Warframe. Anyway, she does one thing really well, and that's damage, but fails at dying. What's good, folks? It's Nightmare Frame here with a new Warframe video, coming at you with a Dagath build, guide, and review. So let's start out with the basics. How to farm her. Very easy. You don't need anything special, trust me. Just come to the navigation, and you're going to go to a specific node. You first need to zoom out so it's easier to see that node. Zoom far enough till you're pushed out of the navigation and sent to the market, search for Dagath, and buy her. Best Dagath farming guide ever. Now, moving on to the important things, how she works, and what makes her actually decent. Her passive grants her a 35% chance to give her a 300% boost to your energy or health orb pickup. Pretty much a tiny Arcane Energize and Arcane Pulse for a passive. Her first ability, Word Scythe. That's exactly how you pronounce it. You become Yareli for a little bit. Swirl blades around you at high speeds that slice and deal damage to anyone who comes into contact with them. And after a brief period, you'll lash these blades towards surrounding enemies. The blades deal and proc viral. Enemies hit by these blades are also slowed, and the slow scales with strength, capping at 95%, which requires 272 strength. And the first ability has a good synergy with the second ability, Doom. And the best part about Word Scythe is that it goes through walls. So you can keep on casting this in regular intervals to keep spreading your Doom and also slow down enemies. So it's a nice stun, slow, and a debuff on enemies to buff your outgoing DPS. Doom, her second ability. Cast a 40-degree cone that deals viral damage and marks enemies with a weird cross on their bodies. Damaging these marked enemies will summon a sickle above their heads and stores damage. After a couple of seconds, each sickle damages its victim to inflict the stored up damage. This ability synergizes with Word Scythe, as in when the ability sends out its spinning blades, it refreshes Doom and also spreads it to any other target that isn't affected. The third ability, Grave Spirit. Activate this ability and you get a critical damage buff that affects all your equipped weapons. Once activated, it's a locked ability till you take lethal damage, meaning dying. And when you eventually take lethal damage, you avoid death and knock down enemies. You're also invulnerable to damage for a few seconds, and during this state, kill as much enemies as you can, as you will have guaranteed health drops from each kill. Once the invulnerability period is over, the ability goes on a 25-second cooldown before you can recast it again. This cooldown isn't affected by any form of modded duration. And Grave Spirit synergizes with Doom, where affected targets take even more critical damage. And finally, Rakali's Cavalry, her DPS ability. She becomes invulnerable and summons 5 spectral Kaithes that stampede forward in a V formation, where the middle one is leading the charge. The initial cast will have the summoned Kaithes deal damage on contact and additional damage as they stampede. The summoned Kaithes travel in a horizontal surface, so they don't move with the terrain, meaning stairs are a huge weakness. However, the good thing is that they go through walls and obstacles. Each Kaithe deals individual damage, and all the damage the Kaithes deal is viral. The Kaithes synergize with Doom, where affected enemies hit by Kaithes also get their armor stripped permanently. Unfortunately, stairs aren't the only problems with Kaithes, as they do tend to have a weird hitbox in narrower areas of the map, as when you summon them, they end up dealing no damage to targets, while other times you can deal incredible damage. It's weird. I mean, she just got released, so this will hopefully eventually be fixed, right? DE, please. Dagath has additional issues, which makes her weird to play. The fourth ability has a really long cast animation. This, however, can be good and bad. Meaning, with that longer animation, the initial cast of the Kaithes can do even more contact damage before they run off. However, this is also slow, as in, it's just better to press 2, then 4, and move on to the next set of enemies. The The third ability cannot be refreshed until you die. So if you're running Molt Augmented, you either have to wait for 250 stacks or die to reactivate it, because the buff does not snapshot with your newly built up strength modifiers. Her shields are in a weird spot, so making her shield gate timer a bit wonky. That means if you're going to build her for a Kaithe DPS nuke, catalyzing shield is a lot more desirable for survivability. Alright, for all this to make sense, let me provide you guys with two simple builds. But before that, I do have Archon Shards to improve her performance, giving her additional utility. 2 Amber Shards for the 50% casting speed, replacing the need to ever mod for natural talent on any of her builds. 2 Tauforge Blue Shards that gives me an additional 150 energy. And 1 regular Red Shard for 10% strength to round off my strength. The first build is of course a Kaithe DPS build, and the best part is that it doesn't really need a Helminth ability. But if you want, Roar is nice to have, as in that ability is going to be a great addition to increase your ability damage. And for the Kaithe DPS build, I am running Molt Augmented for the 60% strength at max stacks. And the second arcane is Molt Reconstruct. Heal yourself for energy spent. This is going to be a spammy build, so it's nice to have. But some of you might be thinking, hey Nightmare, why not run Arcane Steadfast instead? Well, because Arcane Steadfast will have a chance to have me not consume energy for 3 ability casts, and that's going to hurt my energy to shield conversion. Even though that arcane is very good, it's not good for this type of setup. Alright, onto the build. Brief Respite in the Aura for the energy to shield conversion. I'm going to pair up this mod with 2 Augur mods on either my secondary or my Sentinel weapon that uses secondary mods. Modded strength at 209% with Transient Fortitude, Umbral Intensify, and the 1 Archon Shard. Of course, I'm going to be getting 60 additional strength with Molt Augmented. If you know how to do math, you get 269, which is also nice. Efficiency at 175% with a rank 4 fleeting expertise and streamline. This reduces the cost of my 4th ability to 25 energy, which is really good, and my second ability to 12 energy. Range at 145% with a single stretch. This gives my Doom and Weird Scythes 21.75 meters of reach. And for my survivability, I have Rolling Guard for the invulnerability after a dodge roll, while it also cleanses me of status effects. And Catalyzing Shields to reduce my maximum shields, dropping it to 50 shields. And when they break, it grants me a 1.33 seconds of a full shield gate duration. Basically the old shield gate. And for additional survivability, I will use my Worm Prime. My worm is modded for that juicy negate augment that prevents a status effect from affecting me every 5 seconds. Pretty good. At the same time, it also has Guardian, replenishing my shields. And of course, it's going to run the Burst Laser. You can use the regular one or the Prime variant. And you're going to put Augur Pact and Augur Seeker, which will synergize with my Brief Respite on the build. For the Focus School, I am running a Zenrik for that Energy Pulse, basically giving me additional energy upon energy pickup. And this goes really well with her passive. Zenrik is really good for ability spam builds, giving you some energy return with Wellspring, and additional strength with Hardened Wellspring. Even though this focus goes really good for ability spam builds, it does have that one good and bad feature called Inner Might, which allows an ability to be cast without consuming energy every 60 seconds. So if you get to that point where you don't have shields and you need to recast an ability to get your shields back, and you do happen to die, well, no fret, because your third ability exists. And for those wondering what ability to replace if you're going to use Roar, you're going to remove her first ability. Alright, now moving on to the weapon DPS build. In this build, I am replacing the 4th ability for Nourish. That grants me that juicy viral elemental damage multiplier, while also giving me that beautiful, beautiful energy multiplier, which goes really well with her passive. Just saying. And the reason I'm using this Helminth ability is because this is a negative efficiency build, and I will be using abilities here and there, but not to regenerate my shields. For the Arcanes, still sticking with Molt Augmented, and the second one can be whatever you want, I decided to go with Arcane Aegis. Taking a look at the build, corrosive projection in the aura for that negative 18% armor, which is a pretty good DPS increase for anything. Duration at 155% with primed continuity. This gives me 23 seconds on Doom and 38.75 seconds on Nourish. Range still at 145%, which is pretty neutral and really good to have. However, the modded strength is boosted up to 277% thanks to Blind Rage, Umbral Intensify, and Augur Secrets. Of course, don't forget that Archon Shard also modded in. An additional 60% from Molt Augmented, taking it up to 337. But that's not it! For this particular build, I am using the Madurai Focus School that takes that strength to 377%, which increases my critical damage to the next level, especially if enemies are affected by Doom. For my defenses, I have Redirection, which increases my shield pool to 500. Pair that up with Adaptation to reduce the damage I take on my shields, and Fast Deflection to help my shields recharge faster and reduce the recharge delay by 45%. However, if you want, you can actually replace Fast Deflection with Augur Reach and run the Vazarin Focus School, and that of course will have you lose the 40% additional strength, which is no problem. Either one works. And I would highly suggest that particular loadout if you're going into Disruption. But that's not all with the synergy, because this is also going to pair up with a Sentinel. The Carrier Prime has a basic build, but it's using the new Bond mods. Here we have Tenacious Bond. Headshots reduce companion recovery timer. That's not the important part. The best part is, if the companion's critical chance is over 50%, then you gain 1.2 times final critical damage multiplier. But how does that work if you're using a Sentinel? Well, a Sentinel weapon, of course. We'll get to that. And then over here we have Reinforced Bond. If companion exceeds 1,200 max shields or over shields, your fire rate is increased by 60%. Reloading restores 150 overshields to your companion. Yes. Oh yes. You can use your secondary to help you charge this mod. For example, I'm running the A Furus. It has a lot of fire rate, large magazine, and it's using eject magazine. This is the most important mod here. You shoot this weapon, holster it, and it reloads in the background, which increases your shield regen on your Sentinel, increasing your fire rate even more. But here's another good thing for Incarnate enjoyers, because guess what? Activating your Incarnate counts as a reload. Oh yeah. It is beautiful. And the good thing about the carrier is that it grants you additional ammo capacity and additional ammo pickups. So, speaking of the weapon itself, I'm using the Volcax. This is the only Sentinel weapon that has the highest crit chance, with a whopping 20% crit chance. And all I need to do is equip the critical delay mod, which boosts my crit chance all the way up to 60%. But that's not all. The Volcax is a primary Sentinel weapon, meaning I can equip the Vigilante mods. And 4 Vigilante mods to be exact, which gives me a 20% chance to get my crits to a higher critical tier. So this is really good if you're using primary weapons, especially for those Incarnate Adapter enjoyers. Simple synergy right here. Alright folks, these are my 2 Dagath builds that I have been using and enjoying recently. I did try out Dagath for Disruption, didn't go to level cap, but I will try that one day. But anyway folks, that has been it from me. I do hope you enjoyed and learned something from this video, and if you did, please feel free to leave a like, share, and subscribe. For more Warframe content, streams, and so much more, do refer to the description. Thanks for watching, and as always, peace. Bye-bye now.